Okay, welcome to our January Lunch and Learn. This is the virtual series, and I'm going to introduce Kelly Patrone from Howard Hanna Professionals. If you are looking to buy a home or sell a home in 2026, then you don't want to jump off this presentation. So at the end, we'll have questions and answers. So hang in there, and I will see you at the end. So you can take it away, Kelly.
Thanks, Christine. Buying and selling a home in 2026 looks much different than it did a few years ago. Today's market is shaped by higher interest rates, changing inventory, shifting buyers' expectations, and focus on strategy rather than speed. Whether you're thinking about buying or selling your first home, or maybe you're moving out of the area, or maybe you're moving up to a bigger home, or maybe downsizing to a really small home, or selling an investment or long-time property, success in the market isn't about timing it perfectly. It's about understanding the conditions and you knowing your options and making informed decisions. Today, I want to break down what's really happening in 2026 in the real estate market, on what buyers and sellers should expect, and what the practical strategies that can help protect your money, your timeline, and your goals. The goal is simple. We want to give you clarity, confidence, and a clear path, no matter which side of the transaction that you're on. So today, I want to first start out with the buyers. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or a seasoned one, meet with your lender. It's important to get that first initial step out of the way. Number one, it puts you into a more positive buying power so that you know exactly how much you can afford and the type of program that you're going to be in. Knowing your program, whether it is VA, FHA, conventional, or even USDA, that is all important, especially when you start looking at houses, because certain houses are not going to qualify for certain programs. So it's important to know what program you're going to be working in. So go get that pre-approval. It's an easy step. It only takes 24 to maybe 48 hours with some banks, but go and get that taken care of. Next, you're going to want to establish your budget. Having your budget is so important because your purchase price and your comfort level are not always the same. Buyers should determine monthly payment comfort, not just maximum approval, which means you need to focus on knowing that every house is going to have maintenance and repairs done. Maybe you want to do some upgrades. So you don't want to max out your budget in order to buy that perfect home. You want to make sure you stay within your budget and have extra money along the way so that you're not house poor. Funds needed for inspections, appraisals, and having reserves in the bank are all important and something to think about. So the days of zero down, zero money needed are long gone. You do need to have some money in the bank so that you can pay for those fees up front. Cash for a down payment, that's also important. A lot of times, banks will require 3.5% for FHA. Conventional can start out at 3%, 5%, 10 or 20. So you really want to know what you need for money down and what you're going to need for closing costs. The next important thing a buyer needs to keep in mind is your credit score. You need to make sure that your credit is at least for most banks and stuff in the 600. 620 is usually a good base point. USDA can sometimes go a little bit lower and help you out. But you should know like what your credit score is. And if there's any discrepancies in it. If there are, then you want to get them fixed before you start really getting into the buying process, because you want to make sure that those get cleared up so that you can get to closing. Do not open any new credit or make any large purchases, because once you do that, once you start the process, and if you do that just because you're excited, you could ruin your credit and you could not get to closing. I've had some people that have bought right at the very end where they get excited and they're about ready to close and they go buy furniture. Don't do it. Hold off because right before closing, the bank is going to run another credit report and make sure that your debt to income ratio is still the same, if not better, before they clear you to close. And some people have been burned and have not been able to get to closing because they went and bought large purchases. So don't do it. Next thing to think about is clarify your needs versus your wants. By separating the essential from preferences is going to keep your emotions in check when you're looking for homes. What are your must-haves? Is it location? How many bedrooms and baths? Is that most important to you? What about a garage? The school district? Stuff you don't want to compromise. Those are your must-haves. Make your list so that when you're working with your agent, then you know like what your must-haves are that you are not willing to compromise on. You might have your nice to haves in your list that can be satisfied in certain homes, but you don't want them to be your ultimate. I'm not going to buy this house if it doesn't have this, because then you are going to limit yourself in the houses that are there. But your nice to haves might be updated finishes. Changing out light fixtures is not a big deal, but it's something to keep in mind when you are looking for homes and know that you're going to put money into the home right from the get-go. Maybe a finished basement might not be a priority, knowing that eventually you could finish it off yourself. How about outdoor living spaces? Sometimes it's important to people, but if it's nice to have but not a necessity, that's something that you can put on your other column of just saying, it would be nice to have, but I don't absolutely have to have it. Your deal breakers, okay? Maybe the layout isn't exactly what you want, or maybe it's not conducive to what your needs are. So those are going to be a deal breaker in a home when you start looking. Busy roads. Maybe you drive by the house and see how busy the roads are, and that is something that you're not willing to compromise. You want something that's in a quiet area or maybe off the beaten path. Subdivision restrictions. Sometimes in the subdivisions, they have deed restrictions. Okay, are you willing to live with that? If not, that could be a deal breaker, and you could put that into that column. So find out what your needs and your wants are. That way you can tell that to your agent, and then they can break it down for you when you're looking at homes and knowing what to leave out because they know, nope, they told me this is not what they want. Research your location, not just your home. Location is also very important depending on how long you plan on staying somewhere. Homes can be updated, but the locations cannot. So you want to make sure that you check out your area that you're looking for and make sure that it meets what you want. Drive through neighborhoods at different times. See what activity is going on. Maybe, maybe you find that the neighborhood is um, too quiet for you. Like you want to walk down the sidewalks and stuff. So check out those neighborhoods at different times so that you kind of know and get a good feel for. Also, you want to make sure that you review the property taxes. Know how much those taxes are in some of the areas you might be looking at. Some people just find a house and then they don't realize, oh, well, they forgot about the property taxes. And when they find out what they are, that kind of puts them out of the running for the house because the taxes could be just as much as what your mortgage payment would be. You also have to keep in mind insurance costs. How the bigger the home, the more insurance you're going to need. Keep resale value in mind and future marketability. Is if you improve this home, am I going to be able to get the money out of it that I put into it? That's another big item that you want to just kind of keep in the back of your mind. You also want to, when you're choosing an agent, go local. Some people are finding that, if you have a friend that's out of the area and they come into ours, sometimes they don't know our market as well as they think that they do. You can do your research for an area and think that you know the home, but 9 times out of 10, your local agents are your best agents because they do know what's going on and they do know what's coming up. We stay abreast of changes that's happening in our market versus someone that's outside of the market that might not know. Any agent can show you a home. but a knowledgeable one is going to guide you through the whole process and get the best deal on the homes for you. You should be sitting down with your agent prior to even going out on listings. It's important, especially in this day and age. The thing that has changed is since 2024, agents are now supposed to be going over what's called our buyer's agreements. These agreements um, are in place for a reason. Buyers are supposed to be picking up the phone and making appointments to view a home. So now agents are required to have buyer's agreements in the place prior to showing a home. And it's actually there to protect the buyer as well as the agent. So some might ask, why is it required? Well, real estate law and brokerage policies are now requiring this agent agreement to be in place before showing homes. It spells out what our working relationship is with you. It's just like sellers signing a listing agreement with their agent. We always sit down with sellers and we have them fill out a listing agreement that explicitly says what the agent is going to do and all the responsibilities that go along with it. So you know, as a buyer, when you're sitting down with your agent, you know exactly what you're getting. It's about, it's more about transparency and protection than it is anything else. We clearly want you to know what you're getting in this 2026 era now. Who represents you? Me as your agent and not the seller. You want that. You want to know what what an agent's responsibilities are. They can negotiate, they can guide you, and they're going to protect your interests. So while you think agents don't, you might not know what your agent does, this is the time for them to spell it out for you of all the things that we as real estate agents do for our clients. And how I get paid, that's an important thing too. Are the buyers now responsible for paying a commission? Sometimes. It depends on what the seller is willing to do. So you have to be aware of the upcoming costs of maybe a buyer's agreement might specify that you owe X amount in commission because the sellers are no longer willing to pay both sides of the agreement. So that's something that you definitely want to make sure that you understand and that the buyer's agent is going over with you. So again, it goes back to that transparency. There are two types of buyer's agreements. So the first one is non-exclusive. The non-exclusive agency agreement. This agreement here is kind of try before you buy. Try out your agent. Let them show you a couple of different houses. See if you are compatible with each other. See if they are actually working for you or you feel like you're doing all the work and it's just not clicking. You're not locked into them only if they show you a house that you have signed that agreement with. So if one agent signs you up and you sign the buyer's agreement before you see this house, you will go in and if you fall in love with it, then you know that agent is going to be representing you in that transaction. If you don't like the house and you find another one, maybe in a different township, and you pick a different real estate agent, they are then going to ask you to sign a buyer's agreement. And if it's non-exclusive, you can go with them without worrying about the other agent that you now just signed that other non-exclusive agreement with. So you're not locked into anything except for any house that that agent has showed you. You need to be aware that that's the agent you need to go through. The second type of agency is exclusive. These are for my buyers that I've worked with for a very long time. They might have been my sellers as well that have come back to me. And I've been showing them houses for a while. These ones here are kind of like you're dating and you finally got to the point that you know that you want to be exclusive. So your agent is now exclusive to you. They're the only ones that you're going to use to purchase a house. So no matter where you go, this agent will represent you in that transaction. Now, some agents can put a stipulation on it saying that this is their area that they're willing to go in. Because again, once you step outside your market territory, then sometimes agents don't feel comfortable and feel like you're best represented by them. And so they'll refer you to another agent. And that's okay. You just want to make sure that any agent that you are working with, that you do have that buyer's agreement signed to protect you and to protect them in this new transaction phase. So the days of really let's set up an appointment, go see it 2 hours later, really should not be happening. You really should be sitting down with your realtor and making sure that you understand all the aspects of what it is to find a home. And having everything in place because this will make your transaction go a lot smoother and you won't lose out on any houses that you might want because you didn't have everything in place. You also want to understand the true cost of ownership. You need to budget for the property taxes for the homeowner's insurance, as well as utilities, routine maintenance, servicing your boiler or furnace. You want to have that done every year. So you just want to make sure that you understand everything that comes down with purchasing and owning a home. The other thing that you want to do is make sure you're prepared to act. If you find a home that you absolutely love, don't wait because in this market, by waiting, you could now be under multiple offer situation. And that puts you at a higher risk of having to pay more than maybe what you needed to. So if you find a house, don't wait. Some people say, oh, give me a couple of days to think about it. Those 2 days, they could mean everything. And they could mean that you are going to be going up against other buyers for that house. Or if you waited too long, the seller's agent might have already accepted an offer and you lose out on the home. So you want to make sure that you are ready and that you make informed decisions and we submit strong offers. And this is where your agent does come into play, is that they make sure your offer is the best offer that they could possibly put together. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what we're here for. So when you are looking for a home, these are all the things that you need to keep in mind as a first-time home buyer or even as a seasoned buyer. You keep that in mind and the transaction will go smoothly. Have those things in place and you won't go wrong. You might lose out on a couple of homes just because maybe the price point isn't right or the timing isn't right. But that's okay because eventually we'll find you the right home. Next, I want to move on to the sellers. What do sellers expect in this type of market now? Selling a home is a major financial decision. So having proper preparation before listing can significantly impact price and overall experience. You want to understand the market. Where's the market right now? Are we saturated with homes? Is the market not moving very quickly? You want to make sure that you understand where the market is before you put your house on. You want to before even setting a price, you want to prepare your home and your agent will review those market conditions and give you comparables on homes that have sold within the past year. They'll also give you a list of current homes that might be your competition. You can say, okay, so in this market, these homes are priced at this price point. So you might want to consider this because sometimes when you price a house too high, you price yourself right out of the market and then it sits. And you also have to make sure um, that you make sure that it's going to get through the appraisal process if somebody doesn't pay cash. So as a real estate agent, we should be giving our customers, our sellers, those comps so that they know exactly where the market is. Establish a clear goal. Every seller's situation is unique. Before listing, a seller really should identify your sales price range. If you give yourself a range, then when your agent comes to you and say, yes, I think I can get it into this range, it might be at the lower end, it might be at the higher end, it might even be above what you were actually thinking because you didn't really know what the market conditions were. The ideal time for selling and plans after the sale occur. Do you have a place to go? Have your plan B, because a lot of times when we say, okay, what's your plan A? If we sell the home tomorrow, do you have a plan as to where you're going to go? Or do you have to stay here until you find something else? You have to have that plan in place so that we know how to best deal with the situation. Be flexible on your terms and your closings. The date of possession. Sometimes the closing might have to be extended by a week. It's on or about in our contract. Our sellers know that it's on or about a certain date so that there is some flexibility there. But as long as you're prepared and don't feel like, oh, this was the set date that we were closing, um, always know that you need to have some flexibility because you never know what can arise. Surveys might take a little bit longer. Title might be taking longer to come back. So there's all things that are in the third party that while we try to do our best and the attorneys try to do their best to keep things rolling. Sometimes things do come up and they get behind because there might be a lot in the market that has been selling that they just can't keep up. So we have to be a little bit flexible in that. Preparing your home for putting it on the market. What first impressions are everything. When you walk into a home, you want to see what? You want to see a picked up home. You want to see one that doesn't have maybe clothes all over the floor. However, you see and want to see a house is how you should have your house. Look at it as if you were walking through it for the first time. Agents always recommend decluttering and depersonalizing. What does depersonalizing mean? Take down any picture that you don't want somebody staring at. Buyers like to go and see who owns the home. And so they are looking at your pictures. If that makes you uncomfortable, take them down. Put up a different picture, something that isn't so personal so that they don't know your story. That's always a good thing. Take non-essentials out of the room. Make the room look bigger if it's a smaller room so that the buyer can see what the room actually has and what they can do with it instead of having maybe something sit in a corner that you don't really need. So take it out, declutter. Deep clean throughout the home, especially in the higher price points. Most people like to come through and see like a clean home, and just having a matter of having your carpets cleaned makes that first impression a good impression. Hard water soap on shower doors. That's always another thing too. Sometimes it's hard to get off, but there are solutions that are out there. And your agent might even know some good techniques of how to get that hard water off. Those are things that people do look at and kind of make a note. Is it something that everybody says that, oh, they're turned off by? No. But the first impressions are everything. So make a good impression. Make sure your home is clean and ready to go. Do those minor repairs. Sometimes people will even do a pre-home inspection so that they know exactly what a home inspector might come in at. Now, all home inspectors are different, and some people don't catch what other home inspectors might. So if you have a pre-home inspection and you know the major things that need to be done, say you have a couple of leaky faucets or a cracked window, fix them. You're going to be asked to fix them anyways. So you might as well get it done beforehand so the house is prepared to have that done. Now, replacing carpets, I do it on a case by case situation. Some people, they might not be able to do it, but if the carpet is bad enough, but maybe they have hardwood floors underneath that they know are in good condition. Sometimes we tell them to rip up those carpets to make the living room look good without having a dirty carpet that can't get clean. Touch up paint and get rid of scuff marks. Those are the easiest things to do because that takes very little time to be able to cover that up, but it makes a good impression on the home. Repair areas that you might have a hole in your plaster or in your drywall. Fix them. Just if you can't do it yourself, hire a handyman, have those fixed, have them done because it makes the house look way better than having holes in it. Curb appeal improvements. Have your lawn mowed if it's summertime. Shovel the sidewalks if it's wintertime. It's hard to do things in the spring when you have all that muck and yuck, but do the best that you can. Maybe spruce up your front door. If your front door has peeling paint on it, paint it. Give it a coat of paint. It makes the world of difference and it gives that curb appeal to the house so that people are actually looking and seeing, wow, look at what great curb appeal that house has. Address your repairs strategically. This here is before listings, sellers should focus on visible and functional issues, addressing safety concerns. A lot of times in these loans that we have with the VA, with FHA, conventional even has changed their stipulations as well. USDA handrails are always an important factor. They will always be flagged. You want to make sure that those repairs, are done prior to because they're going to get flagged anyways. Your agent is going to be able to tell you by the type of loan, if you do these repairs, you're going to be able to accept a buyer that has this type of loan. Because the more offers you have out there, no matter what type of loan it is, the better it is for you because that's your competition and that will generate a price increase at times when you have things that are prepared so that you don't disqualify people because you don't want to make those repairs. If we have them done, then we know we can offer the house to anybody that comes in with any type of loan. The first 2 weeks are critical. Proper pricing attracts more buyers immediately than an overpriced house. It reduces the risk of price reductions and it also often results in stronger offers. As I stated earlier, overpricing typically leads to longer market time and lower final sale prices. So if you price your house right, you could get multiple offers versus overpricing it and maybe only getting one offer. So keep that in mind when you're pricing your house. Look at the comps that are given to you and then strategically decide what type of pricing you want to get for your house. Effective marketing. Your agent's going to tell you what they feel is the best marketing strategy for you. A strong plan might include video, drones, MLS exposure, different online exposure, targeted digital marketing, open houses or private showings. Some people in this day and age haven't been doing open houses because they don't feel comfortable with it, especially if a house is vacant. So those are things to consider too. Do open houses still work? Yep, they still can work depending on the time. Usually winter months, I don't find that open houses have been working as well. So again, strategically, we would want to do an open house when the season is just starting. But it has to be to a seller's comfort level. Our goal is to reach as many qualified buyers as we can to create competition. The listing agreement and disclosures. As a seller, you're going to be required to sign a listing agreement with whatever brokerage you go with. And disclosures. The disclosures meaning the property condition disclosure. You'll fill that out to the best of your knowledge. Be honest and open as you possibly can. Keep that in mind when you're going through their house. So if you know you repaired, say maybe the septic system, if you live out in the country, you'll want to know when you repaired the septic system and why. So that can be put down into the property conditions so that you know this is when it was done, and give as much information as you can to that potential buyer. Be specific with what you want to include with the home. This is also important and stuff because up front, you want to know, yes, I am going to leave my refrigerator. I'm going to leave my dishwasher. I'm going to leave my stove. You can't take it out in the middle of a negotiation, or if you list the house and it's already put on the MLS. Because what happens is the buyers look and they may have pulled it before it was changed, and then it could cause disruption in the sale if they see that now they're not included in the listing. Changing out refrigerators. If you're going to change out the refrigerator because you just bought it, that's fine. Put something in that's comparable or do it before you list and before those pictures go up on the MLS. Once you change it, you have to make sure that it's done prior to, or it's stated in the listing that the refrigerator is going to be replaced with something similar. Because once buyers see it, they're going to expect that that stainless steel refrigerator is going to be at least something that is similar to what was there before. So keep that in mind when you're listing your house, of making sure that you tell your agent, yes, I am going to include these in the sale. Or no, I'm not, or they could be negotiable depending on the price. Understand your costs, your seller's costs. So the biggest one associated with selling would include the real estate commissions, the transfer tax, and your attorney fees, closing fees, meaning the survey, the updated abstract. Those are the things that the survey can be negotiated at times, but usually the attorneys like to get started on it right away because they need that for the app to get the abstract updated. Repairs that came from a home inspection or appraisal or buyer's concessions. Sometimes buyers need to wrap their closing costs into the loan. So you just need to understand that those costs are being wrapped into the loan. So it looks like your house is being sold at X amount, but you're giving back money in the end for those concessions. But when you record your house, the house is recorded at that higher amount. So that's the stuff that you need to understand and that your agent should be going over with you. Knowing your approximate net proceeds will help avoid big surprises, and your agent can work with you on that. So that will come down to, what do you have left on your home? What are your closing costs? And what is your bottom line? And we can give you a roundabout figure. It won't be exact because of everything that comes down to closer to closing, but we can give you a roundabout figure so that you can kind of keep in mind of knowing approximately what you're going to get out of it. How do we get to review offers? Say you have 3 offers. We're going to review them carefully. Your agent should be explicitly going over each one of you, giving the pros and cons to each, and then allowing you to make the decision. And sometimes your best offer isn't always the highest price. And your agent will tell you that. Important factors to consider when buyer financing strength, their contingencies, their close times, appraisals, and inspection terms. That's all things that you keep in mind when you're reviewing each one of your offers. Your agent's going to help you evaluate your offers and negotiate favorable terms that's acceptable to you and to the buyer. So keep in mind that even if maybe a cash offer came in, but it's not as much, you sometimes can still negotiate that, but sometimes you might say, nope, that's good enough for me because I don't want to have to worry about maybe a home inspection, or maybe having to worry if my house doesn't appraise for what it should. Getting to the finish line. That is our last step. You want to gather up right in the very beginning and put it into a big packet for yourself of your abstract of title, the deed, and taxes. If you don't escrow your taxes and you still take care of the taxes out on your own, put your last tax that you paid for, put that in with the pile, and then any taxes that come in the meantime and stuff, include those as well. Put them in a safe place and then give it to your attorney once once you have a bona fide offer and are moving forward. Your agent will then send the purchase contract to your attorney as well as to the bank, if need be, so that the buyer's bank can put together, um, get going on the appraisal and that. So your agent is also going to be able to help you do that, and get to that process and get to that point and stuff, so things stay on track and something isn't forgotten. Once the commitment comes in, then that's when the attorney really needs to make sure that they have your packet. If you give it to it beforehand, some of these attorneys will also like get going on updating your abstract. So once the commitment comes in, you can almost go to closing within a couple of weeks. So the quicker you get that packet to your attorney, the quicker we'll be able to keep things moving right along. Continue to check in with your attorney during the whole process. Most of us agents, we check in with the attorneys on a daily basis just to see how things are going. When it gets to that point, once you have a closing date that has been set, you want to make sure that you call the utility companies to say that you are moving and this is your forwarding address. You do not want to turn off the utilities. You want to make sure that they stay on, because in the contracts, all utilities must be on prior to closing. So we also want to make sure then the buyer has a chance to be able to go in and transfer those utilities. Most of the utility companies will hold it for 10 days. And if they don't transfer within that time period of the closing date, then they'll usually call you and then we can make arrangements to have them shut off. So for most for most transactions, please do not shut off the utilities. Make sure they stay on, and keep them in your name and stuff so that we don't have any issues when it gets to that closing date. Have your home broom swept. When you move out of your home and you move all of your stuff out, it just has to be broom swept. You don't have to have it professionally cleaned if you don't want to. But it is nice that, if the refrigerator is cleaned out, you want to remove everything from the house. If it wasn't negotiated and it wasn't stated in the contract, when in doubt, move it out. Don't leave it there for the next buyer, because usually on the final walkthrough, that's when we have most of our problems, is because somebody left a whole bunch of paint that is 20 years old. Nobody wants it. It's not good anymore. People are going to change their colors. Just get rid of it. You can even donate it. Take it down to your local paint store. They will take it, recycle it for you as long as it's still in fairly decent condition. Most sellers that I hear say, well, it was left when I bought the house. Then your agent didn't do their job of getting it out for you or making sure that something was rectified for you during that time. So again, I repeat, get everything out of the house. Sometimes you can ask a buyer, I have extra siding or I have extra flooring. Do you want it? Let them tell you yes. Then we can document it and put it in of saying, yes, they're okay with this being left. Everything else needs to go. So that when that final walkthrough comes through, we aren't having to scramble to do a credit at closing or have somebody come in and try to clean out the house prior to them signing. It will make things go way smoother if everything is completely out of that house. Leave all extra keys, garage door openers, anything like on the counter. Usually your agent will have a lockbox on the house and they will come and get the lockbox off and have the key. And then at closing, the attorneys will get the key, or the new buyer can pick up keys at their agent's office. But leave any extra keys on the counters. That will be fine. You just don't want to take them with you so that then we have to have you send them to us at the end. Your attorney's going to have you then come in and sign paperwork, usually a day or two before closing. And then the buyers will set up a date with their attorney and come in and sign the paperwork. It can be the same day, it could be 2 days later. It depends on what their bank and what their situation is. Once all the paperworks have been signed, then then it will go to closing and it will be recorded at the county building. Once that happens, then the attorneys will cut the checks and you can either have a check picked up or you could have it wired, totally up to you. You talk with your attorney about that, and then they can get you the appropriate funds when they can release them. Now that closing has been completed, you're off to make memories into your new home. So I would like to open it up to any questions at this time.
Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
Hi, that was amazing. We're still live, so I'm just gonna check the Q&A, see there's no questions there. If anybody wants to post a question, you just type it in the box and we're gonna see it. I'm gonna start though. I've got like a ton of questions. Wow, that was a great presentation. I appreciate all that information because my husband and I keep throwing around, do we want to sell? Do we want to sell? So do you think this is a buyer's market or a seller's market?
All of our forecasting is now it's switching to a buyer's market. It used to be a seller's market because we used to have that competition where a house would go up and we'd have six offers right on the table. And so buyers were losing out. Now houses usually sit for about a week to 2 weeks right now. And mind you, it is winter.
Okay.
So that does make a difference. But interest rates are higher than what they were a couple of years ago. So it's just buyers are being a little bit more pickier, even though there might not be as much inventory out there. It's still kind of, I feel like it's still switching to a buyer's market right now.
Okay. That's good to know. So, do you recommend the looking process now, or do you think the buyers should start looking in spring? Is that when the market gets flooded? Like, what do you think?
I think once the buyers go and get their pre-approval, they start looking because there could be a house out there that they might not see because it's been on the market for maybe a little bit and they're not seeing things that are coming up right away. So I wouldn't say wait. I would say get in there, get your pre-approval and get started because you never know that one house that might have been out of your price range when because you've been watching it is now might be in your zone now. So I would say don't wait. And I say that to my sellers as well because some sellers say, well, I want to wait until spring. Okay, yes, it is nicer to, look at houses in the spring and not have to worry about taking boots or lugging boots through the house and stuff like that. But there's not a whole lot of inventory right now, so you don't have a lot of competition.
Ah,
So
yeah.
it could be that if you got your house on now, you might just sell it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you recommend using online banks as opposed to like community banks? Like there's Rocket Mortgage, but then there's M&T or Community or High Point. Like, what do you think is better?
I recommend not using internet banks. Only because they tend to have more closing costs that you don't realize if you went to maybe a broker that we work with. Like we work with Homestead Funding quite a bit or Supreme Lending. We have our brokers that we work with. I have used Rocket Mortgage before. I would say in prior years, I was not a fan of them because they did not they made surprises come up with my buyers and it cost them more than what they had anticipated. If you use your local, I always say stay local. And if you can't stay local because they don't have the right program for you, then have your agent suggest a bank that they've worked with quite a bit that does a nice job with them. So don't just automatically go online and go to Lending Tree or go to Rocket Mortgage. Check it out so that you know exactly what your costs are going to be when you go to closing.
Okay, I'm just going to check and see. Okay, we've got some questions here. So Clarissa is asking, since 100% of Cattaraugus County is USDA eligible, how often are buyers here approved for USDA guaranteed loans compared to USDA direct loans?
So I wouldn't be able to give you the exact percentage, but I have been doing quite a bit of, I have actually been doing a lot of USDA direct loans. I do have a client right now that is going through just USDA guaranteed. And so, yes, while there are challenges because the houses need specific things completed and then maybe the sellers can't afford to do them, there are ways around it, but I still deal with a lot of buyers that do go through USDA direct because I mean, it's a great program for people that can qualify.
So does the USA Direct, and we'll get to the next question in a minute. Do the USDA loans, do they just have like less um close like a lower percentage of closing costs that they require? Like what
Yes.
makes a USDA loan attractive to a buyer in Cat County?
So normally with a USDA direct loan, you don't have to have a down payment.
Oh,
You can wrap your closing costs into the loan, and their interest rates are lower, but you do have to qualify because it is income based as well. So
I
some
see.
people are disqualified if they make too much.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's see. The other question, do you typically find yourself in the position of being the agent that is not only selling someone's house, but also finding the new one for them?
Yes. I do. It can get kind of sticky if you're handling both sides. But I do, if I have a seller that is selling their home and then they need to buy a home, usually they stay with with that agent. Now, if it is, what's called dual agency, where I am the seller's agent, but I have a buyer that I have been working with as well, that makes me become a dual agent. So then I just become the middleman. So both parties then have to understand that I can't give privy inform like everything is out on the table. So any information that is given and stuff can be given to either party. So as long as you understand that and are comfortable with that, it can be done. Um, I
It's got to
prefer
be
to.
fun. Sorry. It's got to be a tough one. Oh my
In
gosh.
some situations, it can because when one party, maybe something didn't go as planned, so they get mad. So you have to so basically I just have to stay very neutral in the
Hmm.
situation, and then that's where the attorneys kind of have to kind of come in and pick it up because I need to
Hmm.
stay very neutral within it. But I've never had any major issues, thank goodness, because I do work with some great buyers and sellers.
That's cool. So can you explain seller's concessions?
So seller's concessions is when the buyer needs to wrap their closing costs into the home. So say the purchase offer is 130,000 and their seller's concession is 7,000. The purchase price looks like it's 137,000, but that seller is going to give back that $7,000 at closing. The seller does need to understand that his house, though, is going to be taxed at 137 instead of 130 because those costs are wrapped into the loan. As long as the seller is okay with it, which I've never had a seller say, no, I'm not going to help out a buyer because they want to get their house sold.
Okay. So I mean
That usually.
the extent of the seller helping is just they're saying, okay, I'll inflate the price of my sale price by 7,000, knowing I'm going to give that money back so the buyer can buy it.
We also have to make sure, though, that if they are doing seller's concession, that whatever they're buying the house for, that they can make sure that if they go up with seller's concession, that it's going to get through the appraisal process as well. And I've had certain ones
Oh,
not go through. It's
really?
not often, but I have had where by adding in the seller's concession, that the appraisal didn't come in for as much as what we needed it to. And it could be by a couple of thousand. So then the buyer is going to be on the hook for that.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Now you can't I mean, when you say wrap your closing costs into the mortgage, does that include the down payment?
Usually it's 6%. Usually you could get back 6%. So say on a normal closing, say like a FHA is usually a little bit less even than conventional. So say on a FHA, your closing costs are like $8,000, or on a conventional, it might be $13,000. So 6,000 of it will cover it. So you still have to make sure that you have enough to close with.
Okay, I see.
But it just gives you that much. But the banks only usually allow up to 6%. Some conventionals only allow 3%. So you just have to be aware. And that's why I'm saying it's so important to go get pre-approved so you know exactly what your numbers are and how much you're going to need to be able to get to closing in that price range.
Okay. Um, Approximately how long does it take to close, whether you're the buyer or the seller? Like, can you do it in a month? There's no way you can do it in a month. I mean, is
I
60
will not say
days?
there's not a way to do it in the month because it has happened. But when you have a loan, it usually takes the banks 30 days just to get the commitment all set and ready to go. So you have 30 days for commitment and then 30 days after that for the attorneys to get the abstract updated, get the survey done, all of that. That's why I said in like the sellers and stuff that if you got your packet to your attorney, they'll start doing updating the abstract right away so that that's completely done. And then when the survey comes in, then the surveyor can see what the abstract is, and then they can like push things forward. So typically, it's been taking. We try to get it in 60 days. Sometimes it's 75. But the other thing that we want to like keep in mind is that when you go for your loan, sometimes your loan, you have to look to see how long it is before your rate expires. Because that's important because now then that buyer is having to pay fees for extensions. And that's not very pleasant. I just had one that actually for a 15-day extension is $645.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So we really try to keep it in line so that our buyers are not losing their rate. So they are usually given 45 days.
Okay, I'm just
So
checking questions real quick. Okay, we're still good with my questions for now. Um, do you have home inspectors and handymans that you recommend? Because I'm not sure if that's like a conflict, if you're not supposed to do that,
nope,
but
we can recommend them. And we can even, some people used to say, oh, you have to have three. Nope. We can recommend one that we use all the time. I usually try to give a couple just so that if one home inspector can't get in there in a time period, because with home inspections, usually you have 7 to 10 days to get them completed. Most sellers want them done ASAP, so we're looking at 7 days. So the home inspector needs to get in within 7 days and then also have that report back to that buyer the next day so that then the agent and the buyer can review that and then get in any repairs that we want to have made or have money off, like go back and renegotiate price for, say, some of the repairs are more than what the buyer's comfortable with. So we ask for money off or money back at closing so that the buyers can pay for that. So there's negotiating times, but it has to be within that 7 days to start that. So it's very important to get that home inspector in. So yes, we do have a list of home inspectors we use and trust that they're going to do a good job, and handyman as well. Usually even after I close on a house and stuff, I have my people calling me saying, Kelly, can you recommend somebody? And I usually have a whole list of people for them because we do work with a lot of contractors.
sure. Okay. My last question, just checking the Q&A here. My last question is pools. So I have a pool at my house and we love it and we have a nice backyard. It's fun, but do you think pools are they hinder a buyer from wanting to buy it? Do you think it's a
Is it
problem?
above, is it
It,
above or in ground?
it's an above ground.
Okay. So while it doesn't necessarily hinder, because some people might have it on their don't wants, or some people have it on, it could be a keeper. It wouldn't bother me. Um, it doesn't add value to the home.
Okay, really?
There's no value added to that because you have to have like insurance, like extra insurance for that pool and stuff. But some people might not care. So I never tell my people, don't tear it down just to sell the house and stuff because then you got to fix where the pool was. But
Right.
if the pool is like I've had some that it's in really bad condition, I say you need to tear that out and you need to get rid of the deck, or fix the deck so that it doesn't look like there was a pool there.
Yeah.
So pools are hit or miss.
Okay.
Um, it just depends. It's going to depend on what the buyer wants.
Okay.
So don't tear it down. Continue to
No.
enjoy
Right. I mean,
it.
our backyard looks like a little tropical resort back there. It's a great backyard with a great deck and a nice pool. But I'm always worried if that people are going to say, I don't want that because it's got a pool and we've got little babies and that's what I was always worried about.
Then those aren't going to be your buyers.
Gotcha. Okay.
There will be somebody else.
That's a good to remember.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I think we're about to wrap it up. Kelly, this was a great presentation, very informative. I know, we maintained our guests watching the whole time, and I thank everyone for joining. And next month, let me see, what is our next one? Next month, we've got Rich Davis and Brian Kelly from Acme Business talking about nonprofit office technology. So this link to view this presentation will be made available shortly. We're going to post it on our Facebook page. We're going to send it to Kelly, and it's going to be a link in our weekly newsletter. So Kelly, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Christine.
All right, you're welcome. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.